Tales of Herding Gods, Chapter 491. Chapter Translator, Ninetales. Editor, Dark Gem. Within the chest, silence descended like a suffocating shroud, so absolute that even the faint rhythm of breathing seemed to have been erased from existence. In that boundless darkness, Qin Mu moved as though he were a spirit untethered from the mortal world, his footsteps without sound, his presence without trace. A single drop of sweat slid down, falling into a pool of blood with a faint, almost imperceptible ripple. The one who shed that drop reacted instantly. Yet before they could fully move, a piercing agony tore through their heart, as if a bamboo cane had already claimed it. Qin Mu withdrew the bamboo cane with cold precision and advanced once more, his form melting into the shadows. Behind him, the dull thud of a collapsing corpse echoed like a death knell. That single sound shattered the fragile stillness. In an instant, the extraterritorial devils surrounding the area erupted into violent motion, unleashing divine arts and brilliant spirit weapons that flared like meteors, converging upon the source of the noise. Amid the blinding flashes of divine arts and the streaking arcs of spirit weapons, Qin Mu drifted through the confined world of the chest like a phantom of the night. One after another, divine arts practitioners fell beneath his hands, their lives extinguished before they could even comprehend their assailant. When the final glimmers of light faded and darkness reclaimed dominion, their corpses swayed briefly before collapsing into stillness. Silence returned once more. The interior of the chest spanned a radius of 300 yards, an expanse of roughly 10 hectares. To scatter several hundred people across such a space would normally feel sparse, even with a colossal being like the dragon Qilin among them. Yet, within the perception of divine arts practitioners, the area felt oppressively cramped, as though the very air itself pressed against their skin. Divine arts could strike any corner in the blink of an eye, and the more formidable techniques could sweep across the entirety of the space without obstruction. When Qin Mu had drawn them all into the chest, panic had erupted instantly. Everyone began to fight, and thus the chest had trembled violently at the very beginning. Darkness bred chaos. In their desperation to survive, each person struck at whoever stood nearest. Because of this blind slaughter, many powerful practitioners perished at the hands of their own allies. The turmoil did not endure for long. A leader among them, a practitioner of the celestial being realm, rose forth and commanded them to calm themselves. That celestial being realm expert possessed keen judgment, but in the very next instant, Qin Mu extinguished his life. Chaos surged once more. Wielding his bamboo cane, Qin Mu reaped lives without mercy, and even those at the celestial being realm could not escape death when forced into close combat with him. After the chaos subsided again, someone attempted to open the chest to let in light, only to be struck down instantly by Qin Mu's bamboo cane. From time to time, life and death struggles flared. Those who remained alive trembled in constant fear, suppressing their breaths, slowing their heartbeats, even restraining the flow of blood from their wounds. They dared not let a single drop betray their location. They even closed their eyes, unwilling to risk revealing themselves through the faint glow of their pupils. As divine arts practitioners, most cultivated pupil techniques that emitted light. In such pitch-black darkness, those faint glimmers became the most fatal beacons, marking them as targets for Qin Mu. He was like a bat within the abyss, appearing and vanishing without warning. Any sound, no matter how slight, would draw his attention, and with it, death. Within this suffocating darkness lurked a devil king who could claim lives at any moment. When the chest opened briefly and expelled a few corpses, a shaft of light spilled down from above. The survivors felt their blood turn cold. None dared remain where they were, and they scattered in frantic motion. Soon, the clash of divine arts and the fall of bodies echoed again. More lives lost to chaos. I can't take it anymore. At last, one of the extraterritorial devils succumbed to the crushing terror, his mind shattered. With a roar, he unleashed divine arts and spirit weapons in every direction, his voice filled with madness. Die! All of you, die! His power was immense, easily sweeping across the entire 300 yards. His spirit weapon cut through the darkness with terrifying sharpness, forcing all within to defend themselves. Chaos erupted yet again within the chest. Shouts rang out, filled with fury and desperation. Divine arts and spirit weapons tore through the air in wild, indiscriminate torrents. After a long while, the crazed practitioner's strength waned. He panted heavily, and silence crept back into the surroundings, broken only by his ragged breathing. Dead? He froze, stunned. Then joy burst forth, and he laughed wildly. You're all dead! All dead! I've survived! Only I'm alive! Swish! A bamboo cane pierced through his mouth and emerged from the back of his head. The chest opened, its four sides unfolding. Light cascaded down upon the 300 yards of space. Yet within it, only Chin-Mu remained, along with a pale-faced Pangong Tso and a trembling dragon Qilin huddled in a corner. The dragon Qilin had shrunk himself to 3 yards in size, hiding behind a cluster of racks. Though his thick hide had spared him from fatal harm, spirit weapons of all shapes and sizes were embedded across his body. Among them were several swords unmistakably belonging to Chin-Mu. Clearly, in the chaos, countless attacks had struck him. His sheer size made him an unavoidable target. Even when he shrank as much as he could not evade the stray attacks that rained down upon him. The ground was carpeted with corpses, each bearing a different manner of death. Some had been pierced by a bamboo cane, others split open by blades, some trapped within paintings with their heads erased. There were even cows and goats, alongside divine arts practitioners who had been skewered like porcupines. Some had been crushed by sword pellets, others by the true dragon's nest, yet most had died by each other's hands. The chaos had been too overwhelming. In order to survive, all had been forced to kill indiscriminately. Those slain by Chin-Mu, Pangong Tso, and the dragon Qilin were actually few, comprising no more than 30%. Pangong Tso wiped the blood from his face, his heart still gripped by lingering dread. In that utter darkness, Chin-Mu had collided with him once. Had he not unleashed the ultimate art of Roland's Golden Palace to reveal his identity, he might have been erased without hesitation. During the chaos, he had sustained numerous injuries and slain many opponents, but the most perilous moment had been when Chin-Mu approached him. He had nearly lost his life. Though he had escaped Chin-Mu's killing strike, a bloody hole remained in his abdomen, the result of narrowly avoiding a fatal blow to the heart. His neck had also been bent at an unnatural angle to evade the pig-slaughtering knife. Even though Chin-Mu had ceased attacking him after recognizing his divine arts, Pangong Tso suspected that the brat had known his identity from the very beginning and had simply taken the opportunity to eliminate him amidst the chaos. Of course, he had no proof and thus dared not voice such suspicions. Chin-Mu, drenched in blood, dragged corpses out of the chest one by one. He too had suffered grievous injuries and had danced on the edge of death countless times, nearly falling under the storm of indiscriminate attacks. Among their foes had been several celestial being realm experts. Their divine arts were far more formidable than the others. And their primordial spirit attacks were utterly terrifying. Had even one of those strikes landed directly, Chin-Mu would have perished, even with the true dragon overlord body. Even so, he had endured countless other attacks. Had it not been for the sudden madness of that extraterritorial devil, he might not have been the last one standing. Pangong Tso stepped forward, and together, the two silently cast the corpses into the darkness. Before long, the chest was cleared. Chin-Mu gathered the spirit weapons of the extraterritorial devils into his Tao Ti sack instead of discarding them. Afterward, he recalled the spirit weapons he had abandoned during the battle. Chi! Chai! Chai! Streams of blood burst from the dragon Qilin's body as several flying swords withdrew themselves and returned to merge with Chin-Mu's sword pellet. The dragon Qilin stared at his still bleeding wounds before glaring at Chin-Mu. Cult Master, you struck me? I didn't. Don't speak nonsense. It was an accident, Chin-Mu replied without hesitation. Pangong Tso hesitated briefly, then seized the moment while the dragon Qilin licked his wounds. He activated his knife pellets, drawing several blades out from the dragon Qilin's backside, merging them into his own. The dragon Qilin exploded in anger. Grandmaster, you struck me as well? Pangong Tso coughed up blood and glanced at Chin-Mu, who pretended not to notice. Accident. It must have been an accident. He paused, then added, Cult Master Chin, do you still have dragon saliva? I am injured as well. Chin-Mu opened his Tao Ti sack and produced several bottles of dragon saliva. Pangong Tso hesitated, not daring to accept them. Scratching his head, he muttered, I suddenly feel uneasy using Cultmaster Qin's dragon saliva. I cannot tell whether it will heal me or kill me. Then don't use it if you don't want to. Qin Mu casually applied the dragon saliva to his own wounds. Pan Gong Tso turned to the dragon Qilin, who was now using Qilin fire to melt away the remaining embedded spirit weapons. Seeing Pan Gong Tso approach shamelessly, the dragon Qilin immediately turned his rear toward him, exposing several deep wounds. You like licking wounds? Want me to lick yours? Come. Lick mine first. Pan Gong Tso's face darkened. I merely wish to borrow some dragon saliva, not ask you to lick anything. If you could show some mercy. The dragon Qilin's heart softened. Unable to bear it, he spat out a large mouthful of dragon saliva. Lick it yourself. Pan Gong Tso collected it and applied it to his wounds. They tended to their injuries, and Qin Mu also applied dragon saliva to the wounds on the dragon Qilin's rear. Yet, even after resting for a long while, their legs remained weak and sore. From the depths of the darkness, the sound of approaching footsteps reached them. Qin Mu struggled to stand and activated Cinnabar Heaven's eyes. A figure clad in a blood-red cape emerged from the shadows. Pan Gong Tso rose unsteadily and opened the massive bottle gourd on his back. A waterfall of blood surged upward, hanging ominously in the air. The dragon Qilin attempted to stand but lacked the strength. Finding it more comfortable to remain seated, he simply stayed where he was, breathing out true fire. Qin Mu's arms hung limp, unable to lift the sword pellet. With a flick of his finger, Carefree Sword flew out, hovering delicately near his fingertip. A young man approached, a long knife strapped across his back. He halted before reaching them, his gaze sweeping over the hundreds of corpses that lay between them. The surrounding monsters ignored him entirely. It seemed their threat extended only to the inhabitants of this world. To an outsider like him, they were meaningless. To slaughter a troop of scouts from my celestial heaven's spirit elite guards, you are indeed formidable, the youth said, shaking his blood-soaked cape, his gaze fixed on Qin Mu as he spoke solemnly. I am Luo Wushuang of the Spirit Elite Guards. Does your distinguished self dare to reveal your name? Pan Gong Tso chuckled coldly. Luo Wushuang, Spirit Elite Guards? Never heard of it. Little brat, you have some skill. Come, meet your death. The youth remained indifferent. I admire your strength to have slain so many experts with merely 2 people and a pig. Your abilities are worthy of respect. But those were only scouts. The Spirit Elite Guards are the finest among the younger generation of the celestial heavens, far beyond them. You ground beetles of High Emperor possessing such power deserve recognition. That is why I ask for your names, so your reputation may endure after death. But since you refuse... He drew his blade and slashed through the wind. The knife light descended with the refinement of countless repetitions, splitting from 1 into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16. By the time it reached Qin Mu and the others, the sky was filled with an overwhelming net of blade light. Pan Gong Tso roared and pressed his palms together. The blood waterfall transformed into a towering blood Buddha that met the incoming blade lights. It shattered instantly. But the impact caused the blade lights to waver momentarily. Yet Pan Gong Tso collapsed onto the ground, gasping. His magic power was completely exhausted. Qin Mu flicked his finger. Carefree Sword shot forth, piercing through the web of blade lights and arriving at the youth's side in an instant. With his final reserves of strength, Qin Mu executed his sword technique. Defense was no longer possible. Only attack remained. The dragon Qilin roared, his scales flying off his body, forming countless massive shields that rose before Qin Mu. The youth moved with uncanny agility, evading the sword light while raising his blade in defense. His knife techniques were perfected, grand and awe-inspiring. Qin Mu poured out his last drop of vital qi into the sword. The 18 sword forms transformed unpredictably, and with the final move, the youth grunted as his arm holding the knife was severed. Grabbing his severed limb, the youth retreated instantly, appearing a mile away in a single breath. Who are you? State your names, he shouted sternly. Qin Mu sensed his own vital qi nearing exhaustion, unable to reach that distance. He recalled his sword, letting Carefree Sword circle him swiftly, creating the illusion that he still possessed strength. Heavenly Saint Cultmaster, Qin Mu, he said with a relaxed smile. Beside me is the Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace. Pan Gong Tso's expression shifted subtly. Translator, Ninetales, Dark Gem. Luo Wushuang turned and departed, his figure melting into the abyssal night, his voice drifting back like a lingering blade intent. Heavenly Saint Cult Master Qinmu, Grand Master of Roland's Golden Palace, when I one day attain success, I shall surely repay this grievance 100-fold, avenging my severed arm. Pray that you do not perish too soon. With those words, he vanished completely into the shrouded darkness. Qinmu remained standing tall as before, the carefree sword weaving circles around him like a vigilant guardian spirit. He did not loosen his guard, his gaze fixed into the depths of the night. Only after a long while did he finally exhale a breath of relief. Pan Gongso's expression darkened, bitterness spreading across his face as he complained. Cult Master Qin, why did you have to reveal our names? What are we supposed to do now? If we hadn't spoken our names, he might not have withdrawn. Qinmu's aura abruptly waned, and he collapsed into a seated position. The carefree sword clattered onto the ground, and he no longer had the strength to even lift it. Had he chosen to fight to the death, we would not have been able to defeat him. Only upon hearing our names did he choose to retreat. Pan Gongso struggled to rise, his gaze flickering with calculation as he looked at Qinmu. A lump of blood emerged from his bloodshed calabash, hovering faintly as he weighed whether to seize this moment and strike Qinmu under the guise of anger. You could have used a false name. Qinmu raised his brows slightly, and the tip of the carefree sword beside his feet subtly lifted as he replied weakly. When I act, I never use a false name. Moreover, we are returning to a time 30 to 40,000 years in the future. How could he possibly find us? Fury surged within Pan Gongso's chest as he ground his teeth. Cult Master Qin, since when was the name Qinmu your true name? You dare say you never use false names? How utterly shameless. More blood seeped from the calabash, silently rising into the air. His eyes narrowed, and his expression shifted. With a pleasant tone, he said, However, Cult Master's reasoning is sound. That scoundrel Luo Wushuang, though somewhat capable, is far too arrogant. He likely won't survive until 30 or 40,000 years later. Perhaps he has already perished in war. Cult Master Qin, do you require assistance to stand? Qinmu lifted his head, his expression sincere. Good, my body is utterly drained. If you did not lend a hand, I truly would not be able to rise. Pan Gongso shuddered violently and hastily retreated with a forced laugh. Men should not touch hands. It is best I keep my distance to avoid gossip. Qinmu paid it no mind and supported himself with the carefree sword as he stood. Luo Wushuang has retreated, so we must also depart swiftly. He may summon the spirit elite guards. We cannot linger here. The dragon Qilin retracted its scales and crawled out from the confines of the chest's domain. A few dull thuds echoed as the chest sealed itself once more, returning to its ordinary size. The dragon Qilin climbed atop it, panting heavily from exhaustion. Qinmu also climbed up with difficulty, before turning back with a faint smile. Grandmaster, come up as well. Pan Gongso shook his head and slipped beneath the chest, embracing one of its legs. I am fine here. Qinmu nudged the dragon Qilin with his foot and laughed aloud. You are overly cautious. We travel within the same chest, face the same enemies, and share life and death together. Do you truly think I would still act against you? The dragon Qilin raised its foreclaws, sharp as blades. The moment Pan Gongso climbed up, it would pierce him through. Many thanks for Cult Master's grand hospitality, but I am accustomed to caution and trust no one. Cult Master may have Fatty Dragon retract his claws. The chest began to stride through the darkness. Qinmu closed his eyes, resting with his sword in hand, while Pan Gongso below remained fully alert, forcing himself not to sleep. He secretly took out several spirit pills and swallowed them, striving to restore his cultivation as quickly as possible. After some time, he felt a portion of his vital chi return, and his gaze flickered. He secretly activated the bloodshed calabash. This fellow is gravely injured. This is the perfect opportunity to eliminate him. Suddenly, a faint medicinal fragrance drifted through the air, and he immediately abandoned the thought of attacking. Qinmu had one hand inside his Tao Ti sack, secretly refining furnace after furnace of spirit pills, occasionally stuffing them into his mouth. He also refined several furnaces for the dragon Qilin to consume in silence. Yet, the medicinal scent could not escape Pan Gongso's keen senses. If I wish to scheme against him, it will not be easy. he thought inwardly. At last, a glimmer of light appeared ahead. They had reached the relay station. Within it resided a god, and numerous people were resting there. Bai Kuer anxiously scanned her surroundings until she finally spotted a blood-stained chest approaching, bearing a youth and a plump dragon chillin upon it. The chest strode forward in great steps, crossing mountains without pause. Bai Kuer's heart stirred with a new and unfamiliar emotion. She hurried forward, carrying Bai Qingfu's son in her arms. Qin Mu leapt down from the chest, stretching his limbs as his bones cracked, and asked in confusion, "Why have you not left?" Everyone is too exhausted to move. These people possess little cultivation, and they are burdened with their families. The elderly and the weak make up the majority. Bai Kuer suppressed the emotions in her heart and spoke softly. "The gods of the relay station are no longer here. I believe they have gone to rescue 100 Prosperity City. Their fate is unknown, and now only we remain in the station." Qin Mu looked around and saw countless people lying on the ground, fast asleep. Some remained awake, their eyes flickering under the glow of the dragon god bead, bright at times, dim at others, yet all were silent. Most of those who had fled with them were common folk. The wealthy citizens of 100 Prosperity City had escaped earlier, following that god. Their group had likely been wiped out entirely. The common people, with weaker cultivation, had fled later and thus traveled with them. "We cannot remain here for long," Qin Mu muttered. "Why not place them into my chest and let me carry them as far away as possible?" Bai Kuer was slightly taken aback as she looked at the chest. "Where is the other person who went with you?" I am here." Pan Gong Tso emerged from beneath the chest with a chuckle. "Fortunately, I have not disappointed you by surviving. Thank you for your concern." Qin Mu had the dragon Qilin leap down and said, "Sister Kuer, wake them. We truly cannot stay any longer. Without a god's protection, we must move so our pursuers cannot catch up." Bai Kuer nodded and awakened everyone. Qin Mu opened the chest, allowing them to enter. Pan Gong Tso also moved to enter, but Qin Mu shook his head. "If the pursuers catch the chest and no one defends it, we will all perish. We must remain outside." Although Xing'an's chest was exceedingly sturdy, it lacked any offensive capability. If all hid within and an extraterritorial devil arrived, they would meet a miserable end. Pan Gong Tso suppressed his anger and sneered. "Cult Master Qin, if we follow your plan, survival in this chaotic world will be difficult. We are fleeing from Xing'an. We have no time to save others." Qin Mu laughed heartily and shook his head. "Grandmaster, I merely wish to preserve a trace of innocence and kindness in this age of turmoil." Pan Gong Tso snorted coldly and returned beneath the chest, saying angrily, "Call me when the enemies arrive." Bai Kuer also remained outside. Together with Qin Mu, she sat atop the chest. The dragon Qilin leapt up and lay down quietly, soon falling asleep. "Why does Grandmaster prefer to stay beneath the chest?" Bai Kuer asked in puzzlement. "He is guarding against divine arts that may strike from underground," Qin Mu explained. Bai Kuer finally understood and said, "Grandmaster is indeed thoughtful." The chest moved eastward with light steps. Qin Mu glanced at the girl beside him. Bai Kuer had just endured a tremendous upheaval, rendered destitute and homeless. She had once been youthful and naive, but within a single night, an unyielding determination had appeared in her eyes. Her gaze now clear and resolute. She had cast aside her former fragility. Only now did Qin Mu notice she was not entirely human. She bore certain traits of the dragon race. Hidden within her hair were 2 small dragon horns, concealed beneath her beautiful locks secured by hairpins. When he had cupped her face upon their first meeting, he had not noticed them. Her face still carried lingering anxiety. She longed for someone to rely upon, yet could only force herself to stand strong. She was not the type of girl Qin Mu favored. Since childhood, the 9 elders of Disabled Elderly Village had taught him that beauty lay in plumpness. Village chief, apothecary, and butcher all insisted that a girl should have a round face, a thick waist, and generous hips. Bai Kuer did not possess such traits. Yet seeing her draw strength from her own weakness stirred something within him. "Are you tired?" Qin Mu cast aside his thoughts and said, "If you are, you may lean on me and rest for a while." Bai Kuer nodded gently and leaned against his shoulder. Behind them, the soft snores of the dragon Qilin echoed faintly. Yet she could not sleep. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the devastation of Hundred Prosperities City, the figures of her mother and uncles battling the extraterritorial devils, the struggles in the darkness, countless people dying tragically, and the final smiles of her brother and sister-in-law as they turned back to fight. From time to time, the grotesque faces of monsters would appear suddenly in her nightmares. That's right, I have yet to ask you. When we first met, you said you had traveled through time. Baikor opened her eyes and asked firmly, "Is that true?" Chinmu nodded. "Where are you from? The past or the future? Is that place peaceful?" "Far in the future, 30 to 40,000 years ahead. It is still peaceful there for now, though who can say how long that will last?" 30 to 40,000 years? The girl leaning against his shoulder fell silent. "I do not know if I can live that long. Life here is too bitter, so bitter that it is difficult to continue. You must live on. The people in the chest still depend on you." Chinmu smiled gently. "You are far stronger than I imagined. Many men would have long collapsed in such circumstances. I know living is difficult, but you must carry the hopes of everyone, and also the hopes of your brother and sister-in-law, as well as their child." Baikor trembled before nodding lightly. "Will you walk this path with me?" she asked. Chinmu fell silent for a moment. The sky is about to brighten. He looked eastward. After a night of battle, his voice had become hoarse, carrying a unique masculine timbre. "When dawn arrives, I will likely vanish. I came here by a wondrous chance, but I do not understand its meaning. You will have to lead them onward yourself. Live on." Baikor raised her head and gazed at the pale light spreading across the eastern sky. Chinmu stood and smiled. "Good sister, I will likely not be able to help you further. You must walk the rest of this road alone." Baikor's heart was filled with conflicting emotions. She stood dazed, looking at the child in her arms as tears streamed down her face. Chinmu cupped her face, his pure smile encouraging her. "Live on. You must live on." Her heart churned in confusion. She embraced him tightly with one arm, trembling. "Don't leave. I am afraid I cannot endure. All traces of me will likely be erased in this prehistoric age, and nothing I brought will remain. But I can leave behind a phrase that once moved me." The sky gradually brightened, and the first rays of sunlight illuminated the eastern horizon. Light fell upon the mountains as the surrounding darkness rapidly retreated. Chinmu wrapped one arm around the girl while gesturing toward a cliff with the other. The carefree sword shot forth, moving like dragons and serpents, carving words into stone. The sword returned to his side. Before the sunlight touched him, Chinmu tightly embraced the girl who was about to face the perils ahead. Baikor clung to him as though she could rely on him forever. A beam of sunlight descended, and Chinmu, within her embrace, vanished like drifting smoke. The chest also disappeared, leaving behind a group of bewildered people. Baikor stood stunned. She suddenly turned to the cliff and saw the words Chinmu had carved with the carefree sword. "Human lives are greater than heaven." In that instant, she felt the immense weight of those words. The hopes of all the people around her rested upon her shoulders, their expectant gazes becoming both an overwhelming pressure and a source of strength. "Follow me." She raised her arm, her voice filled with vigor as she carried the child. "I will lead you out of despair and find a place where we can survive." Hope rekindled within everyone's hearts as they followed her into the distance. "You are from 30 to 40,000 years in the future?" Baikor turned once more to look at the cliff where Chinmu had left his words, before turning forward again. She led everyone toward the rising sun. "I will live on, and I will find you. Wait for me. I will reunite with you here. It will be a reunion across 10,000 years. Wait for me. When you left, I could not say that I liked you. So when we meet again, I will not leave behind any regrets."